I used to think stability was something you earned, that if you worked hard enough, stayed steady enough, you could hold a life together by sheer discipline. Turns out, sometimes the ground moves even when you're standing still. I'm Ethan Caldwell, 34, data consultant. I work from home in a quiet neighborhood where the loudest thing most days is the delivery truck rolling past at 3:17 p.m. Like clockwork. My life was built on schedules, repetition, and systems that behaved exactly the way they were supposed to. I liked it that way. Stability wasn't exciting, but it was honest. Laura, my wife, used to say I overanalyzed everything. She'd laugh when she said it, toss it out like a joke, something lighthearted. I never took offense. I thought she meant it affectionately, the way you tease someone you love because you know their habits better than anyone else. I figured she appreciated the way I noticed details, the way I planned ahead, the way I made decisions based on logic instead of impulse. I believed those were the things that made our marriage solid. From my side, life with Laura looked predictable in the best way. We split chores without arguing about it. We planned trips 6 months in advance. Dinners were simple, conversations easy, evenings quiet. She'd come home from her marketing job, kick off her heels, pour a glass of wine, and tell me about office politics I only half cared about. I'd listen anyway. That's what you do when you're married. You trade attention, you invest time, you build routines together. If I had to describe our marriage back then, I'd call it steady. Not perfect, not passionate like the movies pretend relationships should be, but reliable. I thought reliability was the point. I built my entire life around being the kind of man a woman could depend on. I paid the bills on time, kept the house in order, and handled the things she didn't want to think about. I didn't stray. I didn't leave things uncertain. I didn't play games. Looking back, that was my blind spot. I mistook her comfort for contentment. There were moments, small ones, when she'd get this faraway look in her eyes, usually after a long day, when she'd sink into the couch and stare past me rather than at me. It didn't bother me then. I figured work was exhausting her, that she was decompressing, resetting. Stress does that to people. I built a life around understanding patterns, and to me that was just another pattern. We didn't fight. Not really. The closest we came were those soft disagreements every couple has about things that don't matter. Where to eat, whether the dishwasher should be loaded my way or her way. We never raised voices. We never pushed each other. Felt like a mature marriage. Healthy. Predictable. I see now how naive that was. Most men don't recognize the quiet distance that starts forming until it becomes a canyon. I was no different. I believed the structure I built around our life was enough to keep it steady. I treated marriage like an equation. If you input stability, loyalty, and consistency, you'd get the same things back. But life doesn't work like code. People don't run on logic. They drift. They shift. They break in ways you don't catch until the fracture shows itself in the open light. Back then, though, none of that was on my radar. I was comfortable, busy, focused on projects, clients, spreadsheets, and quarterly forecasts. I thought the routines Laura and I lived inside were still ours, still something we shared. I didn't see how far she'd begun drifting from them, or how quietly she was stepping out of the frame of the life we built. If there were cracks forming, I didn't notice. Why would I? From where I stood, everything seemed solid, steady, predictable. The wall hadn't shifted yet, but it was about to. The changes didn't hit all at once. They came in little pieces, tiny adjustments that didn't look dangerous on their own. Laura started working later. At first it was once a week, then twice, then suddenly late nights became part of the routine. She'd text me at 7:30 saying, "Still at the office, big campaign push," and I'd take her at her word because that's what I did. I trusted her. She began wearing different perfume too, something sharper, younger. I remember the first night she walked past me with it on. I asked if she switched brands. She smiled, said, "New client meeting," and kissed me on the cheek. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? Perfume is nothing. Clothes are nothing. Busy seasons happen. But patterns matter even when you try to ignore them. She bought new dresses, ones with cuts she hadn't worn since her 20s, and new makeup that made her look polished in a way I didn't see at home anymore. I chalked it up to workplace expectations, maybe a new standard she felt pressured to meet. Corporate culture can do that to people. I've seen coworkers reinvent themselves after a promotion, after a new boss, after a leadership shakeup. Felt normal. Then came the emotional distance. Subtle, clean, easy to shrug off. She started sitting on the other end of the couch. I started sleeping slightly turned away instead of curled toward me. Little things, quick things, things you don't think about unless you're looking. And I wasn't. I didn't want to be. I was still under the illusion that our stability meant something fixed, something immune. Around this time, she mentioned a new hire, Dylan Brooks. The first time his name came up, it was casual background noise in one of her office stories. Some young analyst, sharp, apparently charming in that effortless way certain men are without trying. She mentioned he was ambitious, the kind of guy who asks questions in meetings and actually gets listened to. I barely reacted. I figured she was proud of the team, but his name kept coming up. Not constantly, but enough. Dylan said the pitch deck needs a stronger opener. Dylan doesn't think the client will go for that. Dylan thinks the rebrand is risky. Each time she said his name, I noticed a small change in her tone. Not excitement, not admiration, just softness. A shift, a drift, but I still rationalized it. People talk about coworkers. People vent about their teams. It's normal. What wasn't normal was how she stopped talking about her work and started talking about their work. The signs were all there. Clear, bright, obvious if I had been anyone but myself. But my analytical nature, the same habit that makes me good at my job, became my blind spot at home. I explained everything away. I built little models in my head: stress, deadlines, team dynamics, seasonal workload. All of it is logical. All of it is convenient. I trusted patterns instead of instincts. I trusted data instead of the feeling in my gut. And the worst part? I wanted to believe the life I built was unshakable. That alone kept me blind longer than I care to admit. Looking back, I realized nothing dramatic happened in those weeks. There was no argument, no confession, no sudden fight. Just a slow pivot, a shift so measured it could almost be mistaken for nothing at all. But nothing was exactly what it wasn't. This was the start, the quiet tilt before the whole structure leaned. Before the truth started slipping through the seams. I should have paid attention. But I didn't. I wasn't ready to see the fracture yet. She called me at 4:12 p.m. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had just wrapped a client meeting and was waiting for the data transfer to finish syncing. The ringtone cut through the quiet office like something sharp. I answered the way I always did, steady, even. "Hey, babe." Her voice came through light. Too light. "Hey. So listen, I wanted to talk to you about the company party next weekend." I frowned. "What about it?" She hesitated just for a breath, but hesitation is a language of its own. "I think maybe you shouldn't come this year." There it was, the first clean fracture. "Why?" I kept my tone flat, controlled. She exhaled like she'd been rehearsing this line all day. "So, funny thing, my ex from college works with us now, Dylan, and he'll be there. It might be awkward." It took me half a second to process. Not because it was shocking, but because it was sloppy. This was the same Dylan she'd been talking about for weeks. The new hire. Not an old flame. Not a forgotten name from her past. But now, suddenly, they had history. "Your ex," I repeated. Calm. Too calm. "MHM. Yeah. I didn't tell you because it didn't matter. But I just feel like it'd be weird if you were there with him around. You know how these events are." Her tone was sweet, practiced, almost polite, and wrong in every possible way. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the quiet walls of my office. "You sure that's the reason?" Another pause. Another crack. "Yeah. I don't want drama." Drama. That was a word women use when they're trying to hide something messy. I pictured her sitting at her desk, spinning this story with that nervous little smile she wears when she lies. The one she thinks passes for casual confidence. The one I'd seen maybe 3 times in our entire marriage. But I heard it now in the lightness of her voice. The forced calm. The careful pacing. "All right," I said. If you think that's best. She wasn't expecting me to agree. I heard her relief. Too quick. Too thin. Yeah. I mean, thank you. Really. I just think it'll be easier. Easier for who? But I didn't ask. I didn't need to. We talked for another minute. Nothing meaningful. Nothing true. She ended the call with a chirpy, "Love you," and hung up before I could respond. The room went quiet again. I sat there, phone still in my hand, staring at the blank monitor. And in that silence, everything aligned. Every subtle shift, every late night, every perfume changes, every soft mention of Dylan's name, every detail I had rationalized away. My instincts, the same instincts she'd spent years teasing me about, clicked into place. She thought keeping me away from that party would keep the truth buried. But the moment the call ended, I knew something was badly, undeniably off. And for the first time in months, I stopped talking myself out of what I already knew. The morning after the call, I woke up before my alarm. Not out of panic, out of clarity. That calm, precise clarity a man gets when he stops lying to himself. I lay there in the dark for a moment, listening to the quiet house, and realized something simple. I didn't need proof. I needed the truth. Those aren't the same thing. Laura left early that day. She kissed my forehead like she had something to make up for, grabbed her new bag, and hurried out the door. I listened to her heels click across the driveway, then fade. And just like that, I had silence, the kind I could finally think inside. I didn't go through her phone. I didn't track her location. That's not my style. Instead, I did what I'm good at. I observed, I listened, and I connected dots. I started with her company's website. They'd been hinting at a restructuring for months. New leadership, new departments, new positions. A regional director role had quietly opened up. High level. Strategic. Exactly in my wheelhouse. The kind of job someone like Laura would talk about if things were normal between us. She hadn't mentioned it once. I read through the description, reviewed the required qualifications. I looked at the timeline, and the first thought that hit me wasn't revenge. It wasn't jealousy. It was something colder, cleaner. If she's hiding her life from me, then she doesn't get to control how I move inside it. So I applied. No announcement, no conversation, no performance. Just a simple submission, a direct line into the same world she was trying to keep me out of. Within 24 hours, HR emailed back. They moved fast. Senior roles always do. The interview was scheduled for the following Thursday. And because I'm not an idiot, I spent the next 6 days learning more about her company than she ever expected me to know. I watched her routines with a sharper eye. How she smiled at her phone. How she said late night before I even asked. How she changed into her new clothes and sprayed that new perfume before heading back to the office. How she mentioned Dylan only when she thought it made sense. And avoided his name when it didn't. I didn't accuse. I didn't confront. I just took notes in my head like I would for any client problem. Patterns, deviations, predictive outcomes. By the time interview day arrived, I already understood the internal structure of her department, the players involved, the social politics, and exactly where Dylan fit into the hierarchy. He wasn't just some analyst. He'd been fast-tracked. That kind of rise only happens when someone with influence is pushing it. Or sleeping with him. The interview itself was clinical. Clean, straightforward. The executive board, lead VP, and the CEO stepped in halfway through with a handshake and a smile that told me the decision was already leaning in my direction. My experience spoke for itself. My demeanor did the rest. They didn't ask about Laura. I didn't volunteer. When I walked out of that building, I felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction, not triumph, just readiness. The kind of readiness a man has when he knows a storm is coming and he's already standing where he needs to be. 2 days later, the CEO called. I had the job. I accepted it with the same steady voice I used the day Laura tried to lie to me on the phone. I didn't apply to punish her. I didn't want to expose her. I did it because when a life starts to drift away from you, you don't chase it. You step forward into the truth and let whatever is rotten fall off on its own. She had no idea how much I knew. No idea how close the truth was to finding her. And I didn't rush it. The truth doesn't need help. It just needs time. The hotel ballroom was all polished marble, gold fixtures, and the kind of lighting that makes everyone look sharper than they are. I walked in wearing a new navy suit. Clean lines, precise tailoring, nothing flashy. Just the kind of fit that says a man chooses his direction, not his excuses. People started turning their heads almost immediately. Not because of me, because the CEO was walking beside me, talking to me like we'd known each other for years. He clapped my shoulder as we crossed the room. "Ready for your big introduction?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm here." He liked that answer. Across the ballroom, Laura sat at a round table, laughing at something Dylan said. Her body leaned toward him in a way she never leaned toward me anymore. Casual intimacy, the kind people don't even realize they reveal. Dylan was smiling too, fingers drumming lightly near her hand, like he was waiting for a reason to touch her. She didn't see me enter. Not yet. The CEO stepped onto the small stage, tapped the mic, and the room quieted. I stayed at his side, hands clasped loosely in front of me, steady and composed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight we celebrate not just a year of growth, but a year of evolution. And with that, I'm proud to introduce our new regional director, a man whose experience, leadership, and insight will guide this company into its next chapter. Please welcome Ethan Caldwell." The applause hit like a shockwave. Laura's head snapped up so fast her earrings swung. Her eyes locked on mine, confusion first, then recognition, then something closer to fear. The kind you can't hide. Dylan froze beside her, shoulders tensing, jaw tightening, his hand pulling instinctively back from hers. I walked off the small stage with the calm of a man who'd already made peace with the truth. The crowd formed a path toward me. People shook my hand. Congratulations to me. Welcome to the company. And every step brought me closer to their table. Laura rose halfway from her chair, unsure if she should stand or sit. Dylan stayed seated, pretending to check his phone, pretending he wasn't unraveling. I reached their table and smiled politely, controlled, measured. "Evening," I said. Laura's voice wavered. "Ethan, I didn't know." "I know," I said simply. I turned to the table. "Good to meet all of you." I shook hands around the circle until I reached Dylan. He stood. His palm was damp. His grip is weak. "Dylan Brooks," he said, trying for confidence and missing by a mile. "I've heard your name," I replied. "Quite a bit, actually." His eyes flicked to Laura, then back to me. He swallowed hard. I kept my tone light. "We'll be working together closely. It should be interesting." He nodded, but it looked more like a flinch. Laura sat stiff and silent beside him, fingers curled tightly around her wine glass, knuckles white. She looked at me like she was trying to read a language she used to know fluently but no longer understood. I didn't linger. I didn't gloat. I didn't let anything slip that wasn't intentional. I asked the other employees polite questions, thanked them for their welcomes, and let the tension at the table speak for itself. Sometimes exposure doesn't need volume. Sometimes implication is enough. By the time I stepped away, the room was buzzing with curiosity. Whispers, glances, people doing math. Laura and Dylan weren't exposed by anything I said. They were exposed because they couldn't hide from the truth standing right in front of them. And when Laura finally rose from the table to follow me, panic barely contained behind her smile, I knew the private conversation that was coming wasn't going to save anything. It was going to end it. She caught up to me near the business lounge, a dim, quiet corner of the conference wing where the carpet swallowed sound and the only light came from muted sconces on the walls. A place built for discreet conversations. Fitting. "Ethan," she grabbed my arm. I turned toward her, slow and steady. "You want to talk? Go ahead." Her eyes darted across my face like she was searching for anger, maybe a crack she could slip an excuse through. She didn't find any. I didn't know you were applying for the job," she started. "I know," I said. "You didn't mention it." Her lips parted, then closed. I didn't think it mattered. It mattered enough for you to keep it from me." She flinched. First real reaction of the night. "Ethan, please. I wasn't hiding anything. I just Don't, I said, calm, controlled. Don't start with, I wasn't hiding anything. You're better than that lie. She swallowed. I swear to you, nothing is happening. Don't lie again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Not here. Not now. Her breath hitched. Guilt, not fear. She looked down, fingers fidgeting with the bracelet she always touched when she was nervous. A tell I used to think was cute. What do you want me to say? She whispered. The truth, I said. Start there. Silence. A long one. The kind that fills the whole room. Finally, she spoke, voice tiny. I got close to him. But I didn't mean for anything to. You got close to him months ago. I cut in. Around the same time the late nights started. The perfume, the new clothes, the distance at home. Every piece of it fits cleanly. You don't have to paint the picture for me. It's already done. Her eyes welled, and she wiped them quickly, almost angrily. Ethan, you've been so cold lately, so detached. I felt alone. I almost laughed, but not from humor. I wasn't cold, Laura. I was consistent. You mistook peace for boredom. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. Not cruelly, just factually. You didn't drift because I failed you. You drifted because you wanted something easy, something flattering. Someone who didn't know the real you well enough to see through your stories. Tears slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe them this time. Ethan, I'm sorry. I'm not here for an apology, I said. I'm here to close the book. She blinked. What do you mean? I looked her straight in the eyes, steady, grounded. Our marriage ended weeks ago. You just didn't know it. She shook her head, breath quickening. No, we can talk about this. We can figure it out. We can go to counseling. Laura, it's over. No heat, no bitterness, just the truth. She froze like the ground dropped beneath her. I kept going, measured as a surgeon. Dylan will resign tomorrow morning. He already knows it. The CEO made it clear the performance issues were becoming a problem. I didn't have to say a word. His behavior exposed itself. Her voice cracked. You got him fired? No, his actions got him fired. I just stopped being the blind spot he hid behind. She stared at me. Disbelief, shame, realization all tightening in her expression. So that's it? You're just done? Yes, I said. Completely. She reached out again, small, desperate. I stepped back half an inch. Enough to make the point without disrespect. Ethan, please. You made your choices, I said quietly. I'm making mine. She covered her mouth with her hand, shoulders shaking, but I didn't move toward her. That part of us was gone. I straightened my jacket. There's nothing left to fix, and that's okay. It means we don't have to lie to each other anymore. She exhaled a sound between a sob and a surrender. I turned toward the hallway. Behind me, her voice broke. Is this really the end? I paused, just long enough to honor what we once had. It ended the moment you stopped coming home to me, I said. Tonight just made it official. And I walked away with a clear mind, a steady heartbeat, and no doubt left in my chest. The divorce process moved faster than I expected. Not because of aggression, because of clarity. Once I walked away from that ballroom, the decision was made. There were no late-night debates, no emotional bargaining, no let's try again. I filed the next morning, clean and direct. No theatrics. Laura signed within a week. Guilt speeds paperwork. She tried to talk a few times. Long texts, hesitant calls, emotional paragraphs about what we lost and how things changed. I didn't block her. I just didn't feed the conversation. You don't rebuild a burned house by rearranging ashes. The company fallout hit her harder than the divorce did. After Dylan resigned, quietly, like a man leaving the scene of a fire he helped start, whispers spread. Not accusations. Just the kind of conversations people hold 10 feet away, low enough to pretend they aren't talking about you. She tried to stick it out for a month. But her work relationships had hairline fractures now, and people don't like standing too close to anything that looks unstable. Eventually she handed in her resignation. No farewell party. No speeches. Just a quiet exit from the same office where she thought she'd found excitement. Dylan moved to another state. People like him don't stay where they break something. Through all this, I kept my focus clean: work, routine, structure. My new role demanded precision, and precision was the one thing I never lost. My team respected me fast. The board trusted me. The CEO checked in often, not out of sympathy, but because he saw me as someone with direction. Everyone kept asking me one question in different forms. "You must feel vindicated, right?" And every time my answer was the same. "No, I feel free. Free from the weight of holding a marriage together alone. Free from second-guessing my instincts. Free from wondering why the house felt colder, quieter, emptier." I didn't celebrate when the divorce finalized. I didn't go out drinking. I didn't burn photos or pack bags with rage. I just signed the last document, closed the folder, and set it on the shelf where it belonged, in the past. Some of her friends reached out later, testing the waters. They wanted my version. They wanted drama. I gave them nothing. Not out of protection for her, out of respect for myself. My story wasn't for gossip. Meanwhile, Laura's life stumbled. Jobs she applied for didn't call back. References were vague. A few people from the company kept their distance. She wasn't ostracized, but she wasn't trusted either. That's the thing about betrayal. People assume if you do it once, you can do it again. Months passed. Seasons shifted. My world moved forward. Hers circled the same block. We met one last time to exchange the final belongings. Neutral location, midday. She looked smaller somehow, like life had shrunk around her. She said she missed us. Said she wished she could take back 1,000 choices. I listened without interrupting, without softening. When she finished, I nodded. "I hope you build something honest next time," she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a soft collapse of someone recognizing the cost of their own decisions. I didn't offer comfort. That wasn't my role anymore. The fallout wasn't explosive. It wasn't cinematic. It was steady, clean, inevitable, the natural ending to choices made long before the truth came to light. And in the calm after the wreckage, I realized something simple. I wasn't broken. I wasn't damaged. I wasn't a victim. I was just done. And that was enough. 2 years is long enough for wounds to close and for clarity to take their place. My life doesn't look anything like it did when I was married, and that's not a tragedy. It's a course correction. Work is sharper now, cleaner. My regional role fits me in a way my old career never did. The decisions I make affect hundreds of people, and the weight of that responsibility steadies me instead of pulling me down. I earned respect because I stopped trying to be agreeable and started being exact. I woke up early, not out of anxiety, out of habit. I hit the gym before sunrise, push myself harder than I used to, lift with form instead of ego. My body changed because my mind shifted. Strength isn't about size, it's about intention. I rebuilt friendships too, the kind I'd neglected during my marriage without realizing it. A few men who understood silence, understood loyalty, understood that sometimes you need company without conversation. They didn't ask for the story. They just made space for me to step back into my own life. Dating came later, not a rush, not a distraction, just a natural step forward when the dust had finally settled. I didn't look for someone to patch anything. I didn't need that. I looked for honesty, presence. Someone who wasn't threatened by a man who thinks clearly and moves deliberately. I found a few good women. I didn't cling to any of them. Connection feels different now. Less like a lifeline, more like a conversation I can walk into or out of without losing myself. Sometimes, on longer drives, I pass the old house. The one Laura and I shared. The one I thought was permanent. It doesn't sting. It doesn't spark anything. I don't feel nostalgia or bitterness. I feel clarity, the clean kind. That house wasn't a home. It was a holding pattern. I didn't know that at the time. Men rarely do when we're trying to make something work out of pride instead of truth. Life now feels bigger. Not louder, not wilder, just bigger. Like I have room to think, room to breathe, room to move in the direction I choose without negotiating my identity. I travel for work more. I take weekend trips when I want to disappear into the mountains or sit in a quiet diner in a small town where no one knows my name. Solitude stopped feeling like emptiness. It started feeling like ownership. Every once in a while, someone asks if I ever think about Laura. I don't lie, yes I do. But not the way they imagine. I won't repeat the betrayal. I don't fantasize about revenge. I don't hold grudges. I think about her the way you think about whether you survived. A storm you didn't cause. A storm that passed. A storm that taught you what to build differently next time. I realized something important in the years that followed. Staying with the wrong person doesn't break you, it erases you slowly. You stop noticing how small you've become until you step away and see the full outline of the man you used to be. Walking away wasn't the ending. It was the return. Now, when I look in the mirror, I recognize the man staring back at me. Not because he's perfect, because he's honest, directional, present. I didn't rebuild my life out of spite. I rebuilt it because the pieces that fell weren't meant to be held anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. If there's one thing I want men to take from my story, it's this: trust your instincts. They're not paranoid. They're pattern recognition sharpened by experience, loyalty, and awareness. And when something feels off, it usually is. I ignored the early signs because I wanted to believe in the structure I built. I thought consistency could compensate for distance, and logic could explain away drift. I thought loyalty meant holding the line no matter what. But loyalty without truth is just self-deception dressed up as devotion. Men get told a lot these days: don't overthink, don't be controlling, don't make assumptions. And sure, there's wisdom in that. But there's also danger. Because sometimes the thing you're told is insecurity is actually intuition. And ignoring it doesn't make you noble. It makes you blind. Laura still tells people I was cold. She still paints herself as the victim of my logic. She rewrites the story in a way that lets her live with it. I don't correct her. I don't need to. The truth doesn't change just because someone's afraid to hold it. Here's what I learned. If someone wants to leave, they'll start walking long before the door opens. If someone betrays you, they'll lie to themselves first and to you second. If someone stops choosing you, the distance will show up in the details. The tone, the habits, the shifts too small to measure but too real to ignore. And when that moment comes, stand still. Watch clearly. Let the truth speak. Don't shout. Don't chase. Don't beg. A man loses himself when he trades dignity for proximity. When everything happened with Laura, I didn't win. I didn't lose. I didn't emerge victorious from some battle. I simply realigned my life with reality. And reality is the only foundation worth building on. Walking away didn't make me cold. It made me honest. The world will try to convince men to soften themselves, to silence their instincts, to accept less than their worth. I'm not telling you to be hard. I'm telling you to be awake. There's a difference. 2 years later, I'm steady, grounded, whole. Not because the betrayal made me stronger, but because I faced it without running from it. I didn't let it define me. I let it refine me. The truth always arrives. It doesn't matter how deep someone buries it or how long they rehearse the lie. It shows up. It stands in front of you. It waits. The only question left is whether you're ready to look it in the eye. I am, now and always.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.